can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh, Lord.
1 year ago, almost to the day, I drove down to Lincoln Financial Field in the cold like this, in a jersey like this, and with a winning sports algorithm. Here I am again today to bet on the Super Bowl once again. Except this time, things are a little bit more complicated because the Eagles actually made it to the Super Bowl this year, and if my algorithm predicts the Kansas City Chiefs to win instead, I'll have to go into hiding. But before we get into that, and I tell you who's gonna win the Super Bowl based on my AI algorithm, let's go back to September 18th, 2024. So in an NFL game, we have two teams. For example, the Eagles versus the Chiefs, and each of these teams will score points, say 45-7. And whoever scores the more points will win. So in this example, the Eagles win. But for all intents and purposes, we don't care about winning. Screw winning. We care about the points. For every football game, a team will obviously have a likelihood of scoring every single score under the sun. But a typical likelihood distribution will look something like this. Obviously, we have the most likely score in the center, and then as we trail towards the edges, scores fall off. Obviously, there's outliers like 19 or 26, which are much less unlikely based on the scoring system in the NFL. But we have a pretty straightforward bell curve distribution. A sportsbook such as DraftKings stands to predict the center point of this distribution curve. This allows for them to create an overside and an underside for which the general public can bet on. Now, the way that they predict this middle point is based on some slight statistical inference, but majority of it is market-based because DraftKings is going to want an equal amount of money spent on the overside as it spends on the other side. And that's mainly because if the score lands on 23, they win all of the money. Okay, so that's the best case scenario to them. But if it lands on the underside, they only win the money from the overside. And so there's a balancing act here where they're trying to reduce their risk while only making around 3%, which is called the VIG in sports betting. They don't really care about beating you. They care about balancing the market so much that they win no matter what. So how do we make money in a system like this? Well, we just predict a better bell curve. If using statistical inference, we predict a bell curve that actually peaks at 29 instead of 23, we are more likely to be in the over category of their bet, which makes this an unfair bet in our advantage. And since we only use statistical inference and don't use market-based knowledge of uninformed bettors, we are more correct than they are. I scoured the internet to try and find other people who were building winning strategies using data and models like this. I read many accounts of people saying that they needed copious amounts of data, large machine learning models, and endless days of research to find an edge in the NFL. But then I realized that the people online probably aren't the best source for this sort of information. I'm sure there's a lot of really good information out there and people giving out picks, but at the end of the day, the only person you can really trust in this industry is yourself. None of these people stand to gain from giving this information out, so why are they doing it? You could say the same thing about me, of course, and that's why I'm warning you right now, don't trust me with anything I do. I mean, do your own research. And so I did my own research. I downloaded NFL play-by-play data for the past 20 years, which was simple using a Python package. I ran my own statistical analysis to figure out which stats correlated with scores in the NFL and found that there were quite a few. And then I built the simplest machine learning model in the world, the single-layer linear regression neural network. And then only after about a week of effort, I had theorized, back-tested, and deployed a strategy that theoretically had a 5% edge on the sportsbook when it came to betting on scores in the NFL. This meant that for every $100 I bet using the algorithm, I should get $105 back, meaning with every dollar spent, I get a 5% profit. Using primarily quarterback stats over a previous period of games, as well as defensive stats over a similar amount of games, I was able to predict the score of a game better than the sportsbook or the market, whichever you prefer. Once I fed those stats into the neural network for the given week and team, I was able to take the score that was outputted and make an informed decision when going into my sportsbook app and betting. If my score was too close to the one that the casino predicted, I didn't make a bet because that's dumb. I wouldn't do the same thing that they're doing because that's I don't have an edge there. But if my score was much higher or lower than the predicted market score, then I would place an overbet or an underbet to take advantage of the edge that I had predicted. Now you'll realize that I'm being pretty vague with the algorithm, which is intentional. I'm pretty sure I found something here, and if a large amount of people were to use it, it would completely ruin my edge. This is a small market that I'm taking advantage of. Until I can confirm that either the algorithm doesn't work, I make enough money, or I get bored, some of the secrets are going to remain hidden. But for now, let's see how well it performs. At this point in time, I realized that I wanted to have some goals to work towards, so I made 3 of them and I wrote them down here. The first one's straightforward. I want to make $1,000. Doesn't matter how much money I put in the end, I want to have profited $1,000. The second one is a 5% ROI, which is return on investment, or EV, expected value per bet. This means that at the end of it, on average, for every $1 that I put into the algorithm, I would like to get 5 cents on top of it back. So if I put in $100, I would in return get $105 back, meaning that I get $5 profit per bet. The third goal here is a 95% confidence interval. And essentially what this means is that I want to be 95% sure that this isn't just random luck. There's no way to ever get to 100% positivity, but you can slowly increase your confidence interval until you are nearing that asymptote. And I believe that 95% is a good enough chance for me to feel confident in the algorithm that I've built. So I'm going to be calculating that using a binomial probability distribution. You can actually find the calculators online. It's a matter of simulation, similar to Monte Carlo simulations. So if you want to look up what that means, I would start researching Monte Carlo simulations and then land on binomial probability distribution. Throughout the season, I'm going to be betting at different dollar amounts. We're going to start at $20, and if my confidence in the algorithm increases, I'm going to slowly increase it to the point where we could possibly hit this $1,000 goal. We're not going to hit it on $20, even if I win a copious amounts of bets, but if we creep up towards $100, maybe even more than that, we have a chance of actually hitting this goal. Let's get right into it. Throughout weeks 8 to 10, I had a really good streak using the $20 bets. Winning 17 of these bets, I got back $706.20, which means over the course of 3 weeks, I profited $126.20. If I was using a $1,000 portfolio, which is around the right size for the bet sizes that I was making, this would equate to a 21.8% return on investment in just 3 weeks. Since this was such a low sample size and I had won so many in that time frame, this brought my confidence interval to 89%, which is pretty close to the 95% that I'm targeting. The problem is that last 6% will be extremely difficult to do unless I keep a streak up like this. At 89%, I wasn't ready to risk my entire life savings into this algorithm, but I was ready to up the stakes, and so future bets will be done at $70. Over weeks 11 through 13, I made 31 wagers, bringing the total count of bets to 59, which is creeping up towards a large sample size. Of those 31 wagers, I won 15, which is less than half, but with underdog bets that hover around positive 112 odds, I'm still in profitable territory. Over these 3 weeks, I spent $2,170 and grossed $2,228.80, giving a net profit of $58. This was a 2.7% profit, which is much less than our previous sector, but still in a very good range to make money on. 2.7% is actually a pretty large profit if you can make that consistently over the course of 3 weeks. That's about almost 1% a week. However, as this wasn't such an extreme growth as the previous 3 weeks, I knew this would bring down my confidence interval, though we're still at an 82.3%, which is pretty admirable considering I've only made 59 wagers. Even with this lesser confidence rating, I decided that I still wanted to increase my wager amount to a larger number. If I didn't continue to increase my betting amount, I would never hit the $1,000 goal that I had set for myself at the beginning of the season. There just wasn't enough money spent to get enough money back and make that goal happen. So I decided going forward to use $150 bets. So every wager I place will be $150, and I'll probably spend around $2,000 a week betting. From week 14 all the way to the end of the regular season, week 18, I made 48 more bets, which brought our total bet count to 107, a pretty large sample size. Of those 48 bets, I won 25 of them, spending $7,200. The good news is that even though I spent $7,200 during this time period, I grossed $7,822.50, which means I profited $622.50 during this time period. This brought my total profit for the season to $807.50, and then my total win rate was 53.3%, which is around 8% higher than the implied win rate that I should have based on the odds that the sportsbook set, around 47.3%. This did bring our confidence interval to 87.1%, which is an increase, but still pretty far off of that 95% that I'm targeting. With a lot of luck and hope and more luck, we would be able to get to the 95% confidence interval for the end of the season, but it would be extremely hard. However, this was really close to my profit goal, and doing the math, I realized that if I continued to bet the same amount of $150 and continued to accomplish the same win rate over the course of the playoffs, I would meet that profit goal. So I decided to let it ride, essentially. Throughout the entirety of playoffs, I made 10 bets using this algorithm, which accounted for $1,500 total wagered. In this time period, I won 6 of those wagers, which grossed me $1,851, meaning I profited $351. This, when added to the portfolio profit to the season, added up to $1,158.50, which definitely surpassed my goal. This also brought my total win rate percentage to 53.8%, which is 6.5% higher than the 47.3% this sportsbook has imposed on us throughout the season, in the form of setting odds that I've taken. In the end, this does mean that I have a 6 to 7% edge on the sportsbook, which is extremely good and also better than the goal that I set for myself at the beginning of the season. Most importantly, this algorithm completed the season with a 90.6% confidence interval, which is considerably less than the 95% I set out to accomplish at the beginning of the season, or halfway through the season. Now, this hit me hard because I think that if there was a single goal on that whiteboard that I wanted to hit, it would have been this one. I didn't really care a terrible amount about the $1,000 because we can just make more money next season if this is a proper, tangible algorithm, but at 90%, it's sort of, is this just luck? Or is this actually something that works? I mean, there's definitely a 10% chance that this is just luck and we are not operating on an edge. Essentially, there's a 10% chance that this is actually a failure. And I would have really liked if it was only 5%. I'm happy that we did accomplish what we did accomplish, and I do truly believe that there's an edge here, but there's no way to tell until next season. It would have been really nice to get the 95%. I also wanted to talk about the sort of effects that this had on me throughout the season. I think that sports gambling in America is truly a problem, and I found that with every week that I put money onto football games, I fell closer and closer to almost betting on things that didn't make any sense. I had no edge in them. And the moment I would have done that, the casino would have won. They would have roped me into betting money that I would have surely lost over time and had no verifiable edge to make money back from them. That's exactly what they want, and they take advantage of you in that regard. Now, I'm sure there's people out there who have much stronger willpower than I, but with every week that I put money on a game, I found myself looking through the parlays, looking at other sorts of bets that can be made, ones that didn't make any sense for me. I couldn't make any money there. Why would I ever gamble on it? And I found that I was almost chasing that high that they had instituted in me. Gambling is addictive in nature. There wouldn't be a billion-dollar casino industry if it wasn't. And the moment that you start making bets outside of your normal system, you're going to lose. They're going to take you out. There's laws in PA where you can literally go to the government and say, hey, I want to be barred from casinos. That wouldn't exist if there weren't problems out there. And so I just warn anyone that's following in my pathway, don't fall for it, because I almost did. I craved football. Every single week that I put money on a game, I craved football. And I almost look forward to the season being over, even though I think that I can make money, because it puts a lot of stress on me. Even over such a small amount of money, I found myself sweating over the addictive nature of it, like craving a cigarette or a drug. And just be careful out there. Which brings us back here to Lincoln Financial Field. The winner of Super Bowl 59 in 2025 is the Philadelphia Eagles. I have 2 bets on this game. One of them is for the Eagles to cover the 1.5 spread, and the other is a team total Philadelphia Eagles over 24.5. Go Birds.